the speaker for tonight, Dr. Steve Nugent. And Dr. Steve Nugent, let me just tell you a little bit about him. He is the Chief Science and Health Officer at Mannatech. He has more than 40 years of experience in integrated medicine. He tested almost 6,000 dietary supplements, and he formulated himself more than 100. So Dr. Nugent is internationally recognized as an expert in his field. He had been teaching doctors about nutrition for the last 30 years. Also, we are very privileged tonight because Dr. Nugent is one of Mannatech's most requested speakers ever. He has multiple degrees, graduated with top honors on the graduate and undergraduate levels. And he has been awarded the coveted Servant's Heart Award by Mannatech Associates in 2007. So let me introduce to you the man who blends mind-body perspective with nutritional science and supplement innovation. Let me introduce to you the man that is known for offering a holistic framework for wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome onto the call Dr. Steve Nugent.
Thank you very much, Elise. And Craig, I appreciate that introduction, Elise. That's a tough one to get through. And folks, we have got a jam-packed night for you. I have so much information for you tonight. And I hope maybe a couple of tiny surprises towards the end. So this is about understanding glycans. Now, for those of you who don't understand glycans, obviously this is going to be great. For those of you who are familiar but need more information, this will still be a very great, very effective presentation because we've got a lot of new things to talk about as well. So we're going to start by making everything as clear as we possibly can for everyone. And we're going to divide some things on purpose so that it's clearer for you as we move forward. So glycobiology, nutritional glycobiology, and glycan technology, three different things. Glycobiology is the study of glycans throughout the human body. Nutritional glycobiology is the science that Mannatech pioneered. And by the way, no company in our industry can say that they pioneered a new field of science except Mannatech. I'll come back to that in a little bit. And nutritional glycobiology is the study of nutritional supplements and how you can improve your health with glycan supplements. So that's different. And then, of course, the glycan technology leads to our products. Those are our technologies. Glycans for many years were referred to as glyconutrients. Glyconutrients is a commercial term, and it's a term that was made up by Mannatech's marketing department way back in 1996 because they weren't sure what to call the products. And of course, all of our associates would use the term, and I would like you to use the scientific term, which is glycans. The reason for this is in the very near future. We are only talking about a few short years away. I predict that glycans are going to be talked about all over the media a lot. They are going to be very, very continuously talked about for human health. And right now, when you talk to people and you say glycans and they say, what? What's a glycan? Never heard of it. Well, in a few short years, when a human study, which is currently underway, is complete, all the media is going to be talking about glycans. And right now, scientists are beginning to understand more about glycans. So we want to use the correct term, glycan, not glyconutrients, but glycan. Now at Mannatech, our motto is that glycans are life. Well, I want to tell you that there can be no life without glycans. I try to avoid statements which are absolutes because in science there are very few absolutes, and I pride myself on being scientific in my thinking. And so here, I'm going to violate that rule and just say what we know to be an absolute fact. Without glycans, there can be no life. And I'm going to teach you a lot more about this so you know how important these things are. Well, again, I've talked about the fact that glycan is the scientific term, and that glyconutrients is, of course, the commercial term that we don't want you to use anymore. We want to stay with the scientific term. And for some reason I got, all right. And I want you to know the definition. Now, you're going to read different things on the internet. Some are correct, some are not. That's just the nature of the internet. So the definition, the correct definition, is what you're seeing in front of you right now. Any sugar or assembly of sugars, so any single sugar or grouping of sugars, are called glycans, all right? And that is from a textbook called The Essentials of Glycobiology. Now, you're going to read through different websites, and they're going to say, well, if it's a single sugar, it's not a glycan, and that'll get you confused. Folks, I'm going to use the word glycan because I use this textbook definition to talk about all of our products, and besides, even our Mannatech product, which our associates think of as mannose from aloe, which it does have mannose from aloe, even that is not a single saccharide product. It is a multisaccharide product. All right, so you're going to see in the discussion of glycans, you're going to see the word sugar a lot, the word saccharide, which is simply a scientific way of saying sugar, and of course the correct term when we're talking about health and human biochemistry, and that is glycans. These are not the sugars that raise blood sugar. These are not the sugars that you put in your coffee and in your food, to sweeten them up. No, these are essential sugars. These are sugars that literally are life. Literally. Without these, there is no life. Some scientists will tell you that they say, well, life began with amino acids. And I'm here to tell you that an amino acid does absolutely nothing without glycans to tell it what to do. So without glycans, there can be no life. That's how important they are. Now, there are 12 core saccharides. I call them backbone saccharides. And when you look at molecular structures, it kind of gets confusing to people, and I don't want you to be confused. I want everyone to have the simplest possible explanations. So I want you to imagine, because I've used the word backbone here, I want you to imagine a backbone. And from the backbone, you see the different, you see ribs coming off of the backbone. Think of each of those ribs as acetylated chains, or chains and structures of other glycans attached to the backbone. So the backbone is always the same, but when you attach these other glycans to it, just like ribs coming off of your backbone, now it changes the function. And structure determines function. I'll come back to that because it's very, very important for us to remember that idea. Structure determines function. Now, for some of you, you might be saying, oh, this is already too complicated. Trust me, folks, we're going to make this so simple, but we have to do it step by step, and it's really going to be simple for you. All right, there are 12 core backbone saccharides, or glycans. There are 8 necessary for cellular communication, cell signaling, telling all of your systems what to do. What tells an amino acid to do whatever you need it to do? A glycan. What tells your immune system that you now have something in your bloodstream which doesn't belong there and it needs to be destroyed and eliminated? Glycans tell your immune system to do that. What tells your brain to do its various functions? Glycans. Glycans determine all functions. In fact, the National Academy of Sciences in the United States, they did about a 5-year study, and at the end of it, they said there is no function in the human body that does not involve glycans. That's a huge statement. And you can't say that about any other nutrients or nutritional molecules, only glycans. All right, so you need 8 for those functions, and Ambertose, our flagship product, provides you with 10. So you got a couple of bonuses in there for other functions. So a monosaccharide, single sugar, oligosaccharides, you'll see that sometimes. Those are also called medium chain saccharide structures, and they are typically up to 10 saccharides or sugars, if you will. Again, not table sugar, not the sugars you use to sweeten your food, essential sugars. Polysaccharides then are more than 10 in their structure, so they're very long chain, all right? So glycans make us who we are. Now, a lot of people, when I say that, they, oh, how can a sugar make you who you are? Well, I'm about to show you. First of all, let's start with human blood groups. Now, you're looking at type O, type A, type B on your screen right now, and you'll see that there are 2 things that are identical with each blood type. So what's called a sphingosine and the fatty acid are the same on each blood type. But then below those 2, you'll see in different colored rectangles with little abbreviations like the GLC and GAL. You see those abbreviations. Those are abbreviations for glycans. The difference between human blood groups is the glycans that are attached to the sphingosine in your blood. That's the only difference. So glycans even determine your blood type. Wow. But it's even bigger than that, much bigger than that. In 2022, the Nobel Prize really underscored the science and how important this is going to be. Now, what that Nobel Prize did is they were using a chemotherapy drug, and the 3 doctors who were awarded the prize, one of the 3 of them is on the board of directors of a pharmaceutical company. They sell, among other things, chemotherapy drugs. And she invented a new area of science called bioorthogonal. Now, you don't need to remember what all that means, but basically what it means is making a change within the cell without interfering with the function of the cell. And she called it click chemistry because people could remember click, like clicking your mouse. Well, here's what they did, this team. They took a glycan and attached it to a chemotherapy drug. Then they took a glycan and attached it to a cancer cell. They put the chemotherapy drug into the test animals and then watched it go. Here's the fabulous part. No collateral damage. None of the laboratory animals suffered any collateral damage. Everyone knows how terrible chemo is. It's highly destructive. It has to be. And there was no collateral damage in any of these laboratory animals, none. This delivery system could not have been created without glycans. Do you understand? I get chills when I say this. Literally, I'm getting chills right now. Do you understand the magnitude of what I just said? That's why they got the 2022 Nobel Prize. Now, it's in human trials right now. And when those human trials are done, and they come out with this new drug delivery system, every news media outlet on planet Earth is going to be talking about glycans. And that's why I want to make sure that you always say glycans, don't say glyconutrients. Try and avoid saying sugars or even saccharides. Say glycans, because I want everyone to know the value of what you have. Now, I want to be very clear. We all need to be clear on this. They did not use a Mannatech product in this study. I'm simply explaining to you how these marvelous communicating glycans were able to do this amazing thing. So more to come on that. This is great. What a wonderful time for us to be in right now scientifically. Just wonderful. Okay, so you've heard of the Human Genome Project, and you probably haven't heard of the Human Proteome Project. That's the study of all the proteins in the human body that started in 2010. But I'm almost certain you haven't heard of the Human Glycome Project. Yep, that started in 2023. Why? Because of what happened with the Nobel Prize winners in 2022. Suddenly there was this a massive and amazing interest in glycans. Like, wow, what are the potential for glycans for us? What is the potential for human health with glycans? Let's study these. So now the Human Glycome Project is underway. And I think that's super. And we're going to talk a little bit about genes and glycans right now. All right. When the Human Genome Project was studying genes, they started with something pretty simple. They started with yeast. Well, as you know, yeast doesn't do much. You can't take it for a walk. You can't teach it anything. Pretty much just sort of lays there. And it has 6,000 genes in it that compose its function and structure. 6,000 genes. Okay, so the scientists thought, all right, just about as simple as you can get in terms of an organism, a living something, and 6,000 genes. So we expect a lot more genes when we go to our next step. We're going to study fruit flies. So they did. And they found out that fruit flies have 20,000 genes. They expected that. They said, wow, we expected to see, because fruit flies, of course, are far more complicated than a grain of yeast. So we'd expect to have a lot more genes. Well, now the next step was studying human beings. And they said, well, human beings, surely being so much more complicated than a fruit fly, human genes, well, there must be 100,000 or maybe 200,000. There's got to be a lot. And here's what they found. Oops, there's only 25,000 genes in a human being. Well, wait. If genes are telling us how to function, and we are so much more complex than a fruit fly, why do we only have 5,000 more genes than a fruit fly? There's something wrong here. So the scientists who were doing the Human Genome Project, they sort of had to backtrack and figure out, what is it that takes this very small number of genes in human beings and makes human beings so amazing and complex? And guess what they found out? It's not the genes, it's how the genes are directed by glycans. That's right, glycans. This, as you see on the screen right now, this is a direct quote from Dr. Vintner. He said, it's due to the post-transitional modification of genes, one of the most important factors in glycosylation of proteins, or called sugar coating. All right, let me explain this to you in plain language. All right, the protein molecule needs to be glycosylated. Glycosylation is a good thing. You want that to happen. Glycosylation happens, and let's say, and I know that you can see my hand on the camera right now. Let's say that I want to glycosylate this finger. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have glycans which will stick to receptor sites along my finger. Now you could say that's sugar coating it, but the technical term is glycosylating it, glycosylation. So you take this a step further. All right, the proteins have limitations. Even the number of glycans have limitations. There's several hundred known. But the glycans change as the organism changes. It is this continuous post-transitional modification, this change. It goes on and on and on because the glycans know how to change. They know how to signal. They know how to move. They know how to instruct other things to change their structures. Folks, it's the glycans. There is no life without glycans. There can't be. And the better cellular communication you have, the better health you have, and the better life you have, and the better cognitive processes you have. And I can go on. You can probably tell I'm kind of excited about this. All right, well, I always like to give a little bit of history. This is just this one slide of history for those of you who go, oh my gosh, it's history. Oh, okay. So you could go back theoretically all the way to the Ming Dynasty in China, because it was bird's nest soup that we have our first recording of the use of glycans for health. You might say, what the heck's that got to do with glycans from plants? Glycans are in all of us. Nothing, folks, nothing can live without glycans. Nothing can function without glycans. And these little birds are called swiftlets. It's a whole sort of species of birds, the swiftlets. And what they do is they use saliva from their tiny little mouths. They're very small birds. And they will pick up bits of straw and twigs and so on. And they glue them together. That's how they make their nests. They glue them together with their saliva. Well, in your saliva, you have glycans. The birds have it. You have it. All living things have it. In your blood, you have glycans. Throughout your tissues, you have glycans. In your brain, you have glycans. All right. That's how important they are. So they used to give the bird's nest soup to the emperors when they were sick, and the emperors they felt better. Okay. Nobody knew why. They thought it was something magical about the birds, but it was really magical about the glycans. That's what it was really about. And the first lab work, if you can call it lab work, took place in 1734, when there wasn't much in terms of laboratory equipment back then. And there was a scientist who decided to analyze animal saliva and see if there were glycans in it. And he confirmed that there were, although he didn't understand what the glycans actually did. But our first really big leap forward comes in 1983. That's when one scientist discovered the functional component in the aloe vera plant. Now, caution here, it's too easy for us to take something really big and turn it into something really small. I don't want you to do that, because glycans are big. I don't want you to just say, oh, it's glycans from aloe and nothing else. No, no, no. It was simply the first discovery for helping human health with glycans, and that was from the aloe vera plant. Why? There was a pharmaceutical company at the time. They were hoping to find out, what the heck is it in aloe vera that helps people to heal? They wanted to isolate that. They thought it was a protein. Everybody thought it was a protein back in those days. 1983, okay? The scientist who made the discovery, and he said this publicly, I knew him very well, I worked with him, and he told this story many times about how he accidentally discovered that it was a glycan, not a protein, that caused the healing function in aloe vera. And he isolated that, and that started our science of nutritional glycobiology to move forward very, very fast. And right now, Mannatech is, I call us the science company, and we are. We do more science than any other company in our industry. And we're proud of that, very, very proud of that. And I'll come back to that in a few moments. And it also, for us, it started this whole scientific direction of what do glycans do for human health. And along the way, they did some for veterinary health and so on, but we don't do veterinary products, so I'm not going to go there. Then in 1996, we made the Ambertose Complex, our flagship product, which was then and still is today the best darn plant-based product in the world for cellular communication. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Okay, so glycans are the facilitators for function. The key is the glycans. The key is not the plant. So it isn't just we found glycans in aloe vera. You're going to find glycans in every plant in the world of certain types and certain balances. But not every plant in the world is beneficial in terms of glycans. So you have to do the research and select which plants can provide the glycans you need for cellular function, cellular communication, cell signaling, immune modulation, and the list goes on. Okay. The plant is important only that we find the type of plant that we need for the glycans we need. But there are multiple plants that provide the same glycans. So what I'm saying here is the plant source is not as important as the glycans themselves, because you can isolate the same glycans from different plants, even different species of plants. In ambertose, these are the 10 glycans. And these, if I had time, we don't this evening. If I had time, I'd run down the whole list for you and tell you what each one does, but I just wanted you to know that's what we have. But we no longer eat our ancestral diet. And I know from the very first visit to South Africa, which I remember very, very well, and I need to tell you, this isn't just about South Africa, folks. Every country, on my first visit, I'm always told by the local residents, our food is better than American food, our produce is better than your produce, our farms are better than your farms, and I get that from every country I go to. So let's not play that game, all right? Let's deal with facts. Human beings no longer eat the ancestral diet. We are not hunter-gatherers anymore. This means that we are missing certain nutrients that our ancestors ate regularly that we simply don't eat. Now, this may sound counterintuitive to you, but this is also a scientific fact. When human beings went from being hunter-gatherers to being farmers, human health declined. It didn't get better, it got worse. Now, this is not about farmers being bad or farming being bad. Not the case at all. This planet would starve to death without farmers, and we need the best farmers we can get. Make no mistake. What I'm saying to you is when we began to narrow our diet, because a hunter-gatherer will eat anything that they can find. So their diets are very widely varied. Whereas once you are in an agrarian economy reliant on farms, now you're eating a narrower scope of food and a narrower scope of nutrients. And we can see in the fossil record that human health began to decline significantly when humans stopped being hunter-gatherers and then narrowed their diet to a narrower base of produce of various types. Our bodies are organic machines. That's the way I like to see it. And machines need fuel. And machines wear out, don't they? You have to take care of your machines. If you don't take care of a machine, well, it's going to need repair, or maybe it'll stop working altogether. And there is the stress on the machine, which I like to illustrate using vehicles. Now, this vehicle represents our ancestors, the majority of human history, up until about the mid-20th century. Our ancestors were eating a widely varied diet up through the time of farming. But even after that, there still was a pretty good diet for a period of time. And the overall stresses were much lower than they are today, with a few exceptions. If you have a war, obviously there's going to be a stress and so on. But I'm talking globally on an averages. Well, if you drive your car on a level plane, you will have better fuel economy than if you drive it uphill. Everyone knows that. It's more stress to drive uphill than it is to drive on a level plane. In the 21st century, we are driving uphill with our organic machines that we live in. Now, if you were to go 5 kilometers on a level plane and 5 kilometers uphill, you will burn more fuel. It's the same distance, it's the same car, it's the same planet, but now you're going to burn more fuel There's going to be more wear and tear on your machine. You're going to need more repairs. You will have more failures because you have more stress. This is us in the 21st century. Right now, there are 67 countries, 67 countries that have made a federal law requiring nutrition to be added to foods, to various foods. Why would they do that? Because people aren't getting enough of it in their diet. That's why. And I see this trend increasing. I see that number 67 going up. So again, you needed 8 glycans for cellular communication, cell signaling, immune modulation, and the list goes on. But you're only getting 2 in sufficient quantities. There are 2 glycans that literally every group on the planet should be getting the 2 glycans that you're looking at right now in more than adequate quantities. But that's 2, and you need 8. What about the other 6? Well, you can't be sure how much of the other 6 that you're getting on a daily basis, and your body is burning through glycans so fast. You have no idea how fast. I'm going to give you one example as we move forward in a moment. This example is why you need to supplement. Now, what you're looking at right now is a cartoon of a cell surface. Now, all cells are not round. This was just made for the purpose of illustration and discussion. Now you see there's these little coils coming up out of the cell. Now those little coils, on the end of each one, you see a bunch of little beads. Each of those beads represents a glycoprotein. So that's a protein that has now been glycosylated. It's been sugar-coated. The glycans have attached to it, and that's what each of those little beads represents. Now, each of those little beads knows a few letters of the cellular alphabet. When all the little beads are where they're supposed to be, it knows all the letters and it can talk in complete sentences. If you're missing any of those little beads, then what happens is you have incomplete instructions that go to the immune system, to the nervous system, to the reproductive system, to the brain, and so on. So you want to make sure that every cell is sugar-coated or glycosylated with the necessary glycans, because that then moves to function on your next step. Now, what you're seeing here is a cartoon to one side of your screen of what these complex glycan structures look like. And then the picture you're looking at is taken under an electron microscope. It is magnified, hugely magnified. And what I want you to see is that, I'm going to go backwards one now. So this was a simple illustration so you wouldn't be confused. And you can see that these are sending out signals like, nourish me, repair me, destroy some bad guy in my blood, protect me from bad guys and oxidative stress and premature aging, regulate my hormones. It's telling these things, but not in just a few odd ones, but in trillions of little glycan structures that are all over the surface of your cell. Now, I want you to think about this. This is mind-boggling. 32.7 trillion cells in your body. 32.7 trillion cells in your body. They are all hopefully glycosylated like you see this picture, with trillions of little structures that all have the glycans that they need. They are glycosylated. They're sugar-coated. And that gives you proper function. I wanted you to see the enormity of this because it is just enormous. Now look at how many glycans. I'm going to go back one again. Oops, sorry. See the tiny little beads on each of the coil. All right, now move forward. Imagine all of these coils, these trillions of coils, and all their tiny little beads. Are you starting to get the picture of how many glycans your body needs every nanosecond of every day of your entire life? Is this making sense to you now? How huge this is? Well, let's move forward a little bit. This is a chart of cell life. Now, we're not going to go through the whole chart. We don't have time. But just let's take a couple of examples. So on the top there, you see granulocytes. Okay, those are immune cells. Some of them have a lifespan that's only 10 hours. Some of the different types will live up to 3 days. When the new cell is born, first of all, glycans are what cause the signals to tell your body to make the new replacement cell. But next, each cell that's born, guess what it needs? It needs to be sugar-coated. It needs to be glycosylated. It needs all those glycans. And just your immune cells alone, many of them every 10 hours, they need to be reglycosylated. And it's not uniform. So it's not like all the cells of your body die at this moment and are replaced at the next moment. It is going on by the nanosecond, around the clock. It is constant, it's continuous throughout the day and night, which means your body continuously needs glycans throughout the day and night. So I want you to see that as the cells of your body, even if they're fully glycosylated right at this moment, some of them are not going to be fully glycosylated in the next 20 seconds, in the next hour, in the next day. And this is a reason to take your glycans every single day. Not just take your glycans until you feel better, but to take your glycans every single day. I get that question all the time. And people will say, oh, well, I feel pretty good now. I don't think I need my ambertose anymore. Take your glycans every single day. And this is why. What you're looking at is why. All right, I might say, well, why Mannatech? Can I get these somewhere else? Well, the answer is no, you can't get them anywhere else. We are not just a science company, we are also the glycan company. If you want a formula which is 100% plant-based, and it provides you with the glycans you need to do these things that we've been talking about, it's called ambertose. It's available only through Mannatech. So you have nowhere else to go. Can you get a glycan from this food or that food? Sure you can. You know, can you eat some button mushrooms and get 3 glycans? Sure you can. I love mushrooms. And you should love them too. You should eat them too. But only Mannatech can do this for you. We are the science company and we pride ourselves on safety. How do we know about safety? We do human testing to find out. And we've done lots of studies on our products. How do we know the products work? Because of the studies we've done on our products. That's how we know. We have spent tens of millions of US dollars. Tens of millions. I'm not even sure how many millions now. I'm not involved with the finance department guys at all, so I don't even know how much money has gone up, but I know it's tens of millions of US dollars. It's a lot of money. And I can tell you that we've spent more money on research and on scientific equipment than any other company in our industry. We are the science company. We are the leaders. And we are the glycan company. And soon, I hope we're going to become the anti-aging company. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. So we have earned more than 150 patents. You get a patent when you come up with something which is original that no one else has done. And we've been awarded more than 150. We still have 96 patents that are valid. Patents always expire in 20 years. So that says a lot about our science right there. As I mentioned very early in tonight's presentation, the new field, the new science of nutritional glycobiology was pioneered by Mannatech. And no other company can say that they pioneered a new field of science except us. We're the science company. So let's talk a little bit about ambertose. I love this graphic. I think it's so cute. So the communication going on here, ambertose and communication. Here's what we know from studies we have completed with ambertose. You're looking at functions that we know of by scientific study. Cellular communication, of course, I've been talking about that. Cognitive function, brain function. How well does your brain work? Are you a sharp thinker or not? Your memory, concentration, attentiveness, mood, irritability, support for your immune system, which is what attracts most people to Mannatech, but I wish we'd get people attracted for the more broader and general, not just for immune support. Digestive function. And of course, I've talked about our patents, and the countries that we are patented in are many. Our first product was called Manalo, and now it's called Manapol. Same product, hasn't changed. It's 100% pure aloe vera powder, but it contains a glycan called ace-mannan. Ace-mannan is a series of what are called mannans, which are sections of mannose, okay? And they have acetylated structures coming off of the backbone, right? So the backbone is the mannans, that's the backbone. And then the acetyl groups are coming down like ribs off of your backbone. And the acetyl groups, the complexity of the acetyl groups and the arrangement of the acetyl groups is what changes the structure and what changes the function, which I'll show you in a moment. And yeah, Manipul's pretty expensive because what you're about to see in a few moments is our structure is very different than your standard mannose from aloe. Very different. So it takes 15 kilograms, 415 kilograms of aloe leaf, which is all hand filleted, by the way. We hand fillet it because the companies that use machines very often have bits of what's called aloe latex. That's the inner part of the hard outer leaf, the inner bed of it is called aloe latex. It's not good for you. Now, it won't kill you, but it's going to mess up your gut and make you feel, well, less than happy, okay? So all of ours are filleted by hand. That's quite a job right there. 415 kgs to make 1 kilo of Mannapol. That's pretty amazing. So Mannapol isn't just mannose from aloe. Ace-mannan is a multiglycan. And so if you were to look at the structure, you would see 12 mannans with acetyl structures coming off of it. Whereas if you were to look at ordinary mannose, you'd have 4 mannans with maybe 2 acetyl structures coming off of it. Structure equals function. Function is what you want. So in Mannapol, you will also have, not just mannose, you have glucose. Now that's glucose in levels needed to facilitate other functions. It won't raise your blood sugar. It will not raise your blood sugar, okay, not to worry. And of course, galactose as well, and a couple of bonus glycans, arabinose and xylose are in there also. Then in the aloe gel, what you're looking at right now is a cross-section of aloe gel underneath the microscope. And you see it's got little sections, little walls. Each of those contain what are known as allopectin. Allopectin has amazing properties for detoxification. It's called enterosorbent, means that it cleanses you, okay? So for cleansing, but it's bigger than that. In the walls of these structures is something called galacturonic acid and glucuronic acid. Now, when you have enough of these, you now begin to attract metals as well. What we have is a very heavy pectin. 2 million Daltons is about 1.5 million Daltons heavier than standard aloe vera gel. Now that makes a difference for the cleansing portion of this. What you see, by the way, is the formula for Mannapol versus the formula of standard aloe, which I'll show you in a moment. So 90% glucuronic acid. This means that you are going to be able to cleanse your system much more effectively with it, and you can bind to metals, to harmful metals. In fact, if you look on the periodic table, we don't have time for that right now, but +2 and +3 metals, you can bind to these with this allopectin. That's a huge benefit. And so again, that means that our allopectin is enterosorbent, or a cleanser. Helps to cleanse your body all by itself. It's very, very cool. Also, there are growth factor binding and stabilizing molecules here that will help you from the allopectin, and it works as a prebiotic to help you have better gut health as well. Now, I told you structure is key to function. You've heard me say it, I don't know how many times now. Mannapol, you can see the structure, you see the formula, C66, H100, NO49, and you compare that to standard mannose from aloe. You can see there's a big difference in the structure. So any other company that says, oh yeah, we're just the same as Mannatech, and we have aloe too, and it's just the same. Folks, it's not the same. Science, not marketing, not salesmanship. Science tells us what the structure is, and our structure is different. Very, very different from your standard mannose. By the way, standard mannose is still useful. It still does good things for your body. It does. It is still helpful. It's just not Mannapol. Okay? All right. So, plant source of glycans, that's one thing. Glycans is another thing. And now glycan technology is where we're going. Our products are third-party tested in clinical trials for safety and effectiveness. So, do our competitors do that? No, none that I'm aware of. As far as I know, we're the only ones in the field doing this with glycans. We currently have 12 patents still in force on the ambertose complex. And of course, the original ones have expired because they're more than 20 years. And I want you to also see, because you have ambertose complex and you have advanced ambertose, I'm always asked, what's the difference? Well, here's the difference. The base formula is identical. The base formula exactly the same. The original 10 glycans. But in ambertose complex, you have 200 milligrams of Mannapol. In advanced ambertose, you have only 95 milligrams of Mannapol, so about half as much. And I've just gone through the whole thing for you about the value of Mannapol. Okay. You have the original fucose in both formulas because you need that for cellular communication. But then in advanced ambertose, you have some fucoidins added, which come from seaweed, from wakame. And so advanced ambertose may stimulate a bit. Ambertose complex always modulates. Modulation means balance. Okay, so if it's low, it comes up to normal. If it's high, it goes down to normal. Stimulation means it goes up. Okay, so there are cases where you may want to stimulate, but modulation is, in my opinion, the best way to go. So now you see the differences. Otherwise, they're exactly the same, the two formulas. So glycans are foundational. I personally have been using complex since 1996. I did try advanced for a while. My body liked complex better. And we've had other iterations that we've experimented with. My body always likes complex the best. So that's what I take. And because ambertose complex powder always modulates. So again, if it's low, it comes up to normal. If it's high, it goes down to normal. That's always what you want. You want normal, healthy function. That's always what you want. So when doctors, because I teach doctors all the time, And when doctors say to me, oh, I'm so confused, you got this ambertose, you have that ambertose, and you have ambertose AO, and you have ambertose in this, and they don't know what to do. And I say, you know what? Use complex. If you use complex, you'll never make a mistake. You'll always be right. You don't have to stress about it. So that's what I always tell healthcare practitioners as well. Okay, so the question comes up, well, you've said the word sugar, and I'm afraid of sugar, and I'm afraid it'll make me fat. I'm afraid it'll raise my blood sugar. And I've already said several times, it will not raise your blood sugar. How do we know that? Human study. We did a scientific study, and in the study, we drew blood to get baseline blood sugar. Then we gave everybody 4 grams of ambertose complex, and 4 grams is what the label calls for. And then we retested their blood sugar, and there was not one human being in the study, not one, that had a change in their blood glucose level or blood sugar level, not a one. So these are not the sugars that will raise your blood sugar. These are the sugars you need for healthy function, okay? And then we'll always have somebody that says, oh, I think I'm allergic to aloe. First of all, how would you know that? I once went out in the bush with a dear friend of mine, Dr. Charles Marie. Some of you know him. He's a very dear friend. Love that guy. And so we're out there, and he's showing me all kinds of things about African plants, and I love that. And he showed me some places where ruminating quadrupeds, and I don't remember which ones they would have been, but they could have been any of the various forms of antelope or deer or whatever that you have there. And they had been taking single bites from aloe plants to cleanse their system. Okay. Well, part of what was doing that was in the yellow sap, and that was making them purge, and it would cleanse them of parasites, as Dr. Marie explained to me, and which I thought was fabulous. I love that piece of information he gave me. And the allergen in aloe is in the yellow gel. Now, probably there are no humans on this call that walk around the bush taking bites out of aloe plants. Probably not, I would think. It would be pretty awful if you did, because raw aloe tastes pretty awful. Anyway, if you if you had done that, then you had a bad day. But just to let you know that the allergen in aloe vera is actually in the yellow sap. Now we know that, so we separate the yellow sap. Why in the world would we use something that had an allergen in it? So the answer that you'll see on most of our websites is the allergen is in the yellow sap, and we don't use the yellow sap. Remember, our aloe gel is hand filleted, all right, to make sure that we're getting the right things in there, okay? By the way, as I'm doing this presentation, I'm really enjoying the little emojis and stuff coming up on the screen of people reacting to what I'm saying. I'm really enjoying that. That's great. Okay. Now, how about a little tease for the next time I come to speak with all my friends in South Africa and Namibia? Well, here's a little tease for you. Remember, I said we're the science company and we're the Glycan company. I hope that very soon we're going to start being talked about as the anti-aging company. There's a new area of science, and it's called glycan replacement therapy. Now, we at Mannatech are going to call it glycan replenishment therapy. A small difference, but it's important to our legal department, so we're going to do that. And what do we know from these new studies? It's exciting, folks. What we know is that IgG, that stands for immunoglobulin G, the most important immune protein in the human body, when it is glycosylated or sugar-coated, then it can tell us more accurately about aging even than telomeres. Telomeres are what scientists have been using recently. And we've learned some other things as well about this. Now, 2 terms for you. I hope I haven't given you too many terms and confused anybody. I try hard not to, but hopefully not. Two things: glycation, that you may read about on some sites that want to trash glycans and glycan therapies, or maybe they want to trash Mannatech, who knows? And they may talk about glycation. Well, glycation is something that occurs as you age. In fact, up to about the age of 40-ish, uh, you get very little glycation and mostly glycosylation, which is good, because glycosylation, if it's going normally, you have normal immune function and all these other functions. But after a certain point of aging, we decrease glycosylation and we increase glycation. We know this by studies. The primary indicator for an increase in glycation and aging, by the way, is inflammation. And you know you get more inflammation and you get inflamed easier as you age. You all know that. This is important stuff. So the timeline works pretty much what you're seeing here. And on my next presentation for you, I think I'll be doing the presentation on GRT, glycan replacement therapy, which I think is a new and an easy way to help everybody you know, to tell everybody you know about our glycan products. Okay. All right. So 0 to 20 years of age, everything's usually pretty normal. 21 to 40, around the 40-ish mark, you may have minor changes that may appear in various early health problems. After 40 and up to 60, you now begin to have patterns that we can track by scientific study that relate to aging. And once again, IgG glycosylation is a better, more accurate indicator for aging than telomeres. And there's a way to test for it. That's exciting too. I'm sure that your country manager, Darren, is going to invite me back to talk about testing methods as well. I've no time in this one. I've already run over time. So I'm just going to finish up this bit, okay? 41 to 60, then, we can measure the impacts on your health by measuring glycans in the blood. Yeah, that's coming, folks. That's coming. Get excited. You should. And from 61 years up, now we really begin to measure a lot of glycan dysfunction. It becomes very common. Glycation is increasing like crazy, and glycosylation is decreasing like crazy. One of the ways you do it is glycan replacement therapy. This therapy tells us that if we add glycans as we age, guess what? The biomarkers of aging slow down. Oh, listen, I'm thinking I want to live to maybe 147, somewhere in that neighborhood. Being conservative now. Could I do it if I can glycosylate myself well enough for long enough? Maybe. I don't know. We're going to find out. But I'm not going to give up the ghost too early. I'm going to glycosylate my cells as best I can every day and make sure that I take adequate levels of ambertose complex in the process. So what we know from these studies, and I'll talk about this when I come back for another presentation, GRT can measure biomarkers accurately for aging. And folks, what does this do for you? Let's say that you have a dear friend, and this dear friend of yours, you know that they need some assistance. And you just go over and you say, you know what? I don't know about you, but I want to live as long as possible. I want to live as healthy as possible. And I want you to have the same benefit. Well, GRT is going to help you get there. I can't wait to talk to you about it. It's going to be a pretty big deal. And ambertose and mannitol, those are the scientific basis to give you the glycans you need to replace for all these things that we're looking at. Pretty cool. And I'll finish up with this. Since very soon, I don't know if it's already happened, but it's going to be pretty darn quick, you are going to be releasing a new collagen product, vanilla flavor, and you're going to be releasing this And I don't have time to train you on this product tonight, but let me tell you something, folks. Collagen is serious business. You know, I started in practice 48 years ago. Can you believe that? Wow, that's a long time ago. If I would have known what I know today about collagen, I'll tell you, I would look like a movie star. But I didn't know back then. And I didn't take collagen supplements starting around, say, the 25-ish mark. I wish I would have, but I didn't. And so, well, as we say in the US, as we look at our faces and we call it your kisser, okay? My kisser is what it is. And oh well. But you don't have to do that. Everybody should know that you begin to decrease collagen production around 25. Now, of course, most people look great in their 20s because it's gradual, it's very minor. 30 to 39, we can see some aging. Now, understand that collagen is necessary inside of your body for your health for a lot of functions, not just a couple, a lot. But most people think about collagen and aging, like how does your skin look, right? How young do you look? Do you have fine lines and wrinkles and so on? Does your skin look soft and supple, like the picture of this 25-year-old that we see on the screen right now? Well, by the time you're into your 40s, the average person has lost 25 to 30% of their collagen production. And it's showing up then, isn't it? Sure it is. And by the age of 60, 50% is the average. Wow. Start taking this new collagen product. Start taking it as soon as Darren releases it to all of you. Start taking it. Don't be foolish like I was. I should have been taking it 48 years ago. Heck, I could look like a movie star today if I had, but instead, I kind of look like a guy who's 72 years old. Oh well. You don't have to do that. Take the right steps. Take the right steps now. Supports healthy aging. That's going to fit beautifully as Mannatech slowly but surely becomes known as the anti-aging company. Healthy skin and hair and nails. Reduce cellulite. Joint and bone health. Very, very, very important for your entire life, but especially as you age. This formulation that you are going to be starting with very, very soon has a unique blend of ingredients in it that really makes this a fantastic collagen product to help you reduce wrinkles and in fact, up to 65% increase in pro-collagen production. That equates to reduced wrinkles and improved skin elasticity and the surface cellulite and improving hair thickness and nails and the strength of the nails as well, and improving skin hydration. Collagen's involved there. And to increase the luminescence. Remember 2 slides back with that beautiful young 25-year-old and how beautiful and radiant her skin looked? Don't you want that? Man, I don't know if taking the collagen can get that back for me, but I'm going to try. You should too. Okay, all of these benefits. And there have been thus far with these special ingredients an 82% satisfied customer list from people using just one of the special ingredients that we have in this product. And of course, we've added our aloe vera that I've talked about so much already, which does all by itself. The galactose helps with inflammation. Remember I told you that the glycans that are in the ace mannan, that helps with inflammation and oxidation. Oxidation is the principal cause of aging of your skin and really aging of your entire body, but especially aging of your skin, and detoxification, which is important for radiant skin, and of course, immune support. So repair, restore, radiate. Wow. You're going to have this product really, really quick. I don't know how many hours before it's released, but you're going to have it very quick. If I were you, I'd start taking it right away and take it every day. Take it every day. And add to what we're doing with aging, I want all of you to live as long as you can live. I want you to have the healthiest, strongest, most vibrant, most robust lives that you can possibly have. Happy and healthy, folks. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for all of you. But you've got to put it in your mouth. If you just stare at the bottle, it won't change anything. You've got to take action. The action's simple. You just start taking the products for your health.